Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of University of Laughs, a Japanese comedy drama from 2004 that stars Koji Yakusho and Goro Inagaki. It's based on a successful stage play from 1996, and the script was written by popular director Koki Mitani, who also wrote the stage play. Set in 1940, a young playwright, played by Inagaki, comes up against a government censor, played by Yakusho. The censor's job is to prevent anything political or taboo from getting into the media. But this censor also has a thing against comedy. The writer comes to have his script checked by the censors before rehearsals begin on his stage play. But the censor, who is looking for an excuse to shut down the comedy troupe entirely, tells him that his whole play is rubbish and that he should rewrite it completely. And this sets into motion a multitude of revisions. So Yakusho's character is kind of a newly hired censor. He comes in and he's very strict. The film opens with him rejecting a variety of scripts in multiple montages, which take place at the Office of Public Security, which has its own censorship division. And even relatively benign and inoffensive things are deleted from these scripts. But I particularly enjoyed the brief moment we get near the beginning where someone presents a script where King Kong destroys Japan, and it gets rejected because King Kong destroys a particular building, it seems. So I found that to be pretty entertaining. After those little montages, though, our protagonist shows up, and he submits his comedy script to be performed as a stage play in a local theater, and then the film goes from there. So University of Laughs is a great movie. It relies entirely on dialogue and acting. And that's it. I mean, that's basically what you get here, and it's awesome. Those qualities are driven by the fact that it was adapted from a stage play, which also relies heavily on those things. And that comes through in the interaction between the two characters, which is very well written and compelling. This actually has a number of similarities to the film Welcome Back, Mr. McDonald, which I reviewed not too long ago, a movie that was directed by the scriptwriter of this movie. So Mitani did not direct University of Laughs, he just wrote the script, but he's popular for a number of films that he did direct. So if you enjoyed Welcome Back, Mr. McDonald, which is a must-watch, by the way, you're probably going to like this movie as well. Similarities abound between the two films. We get thematically a lack of artistic freedom for our lead protagonist, time restrictions placed on our protagonist to adapt to unreasonable demands, a one-room setting for the most part, use of humor, character bonding, etc. And almost the entire film takes place in the censorship board's conference room, where the characters discuss and debate the many necessary revisions. The conversations are kind of rapid fire, very interesting, and dynamic. And I think both of these movies, Welcome Back, Mr. McDonald and University of Laughs, make a pretty fantastic double feature. And the characters have nuance. The censor is more multidimensional than what you might expect, given the premise. And they could have turned him into a one-dimensional tyrant, but he's really not that way at all, which is pretty interesting. Even though he does make unreasonable demands and requests, eventually you get a good feel for his personality, and there's a lot more going on there. And then on the other hand, you have our main protagonist, who has such incredible resiliency, it's impressive. Being forced to constantly rewrite your material over and over again, in many cases for stupid reasons, has to be brutal for a writer. And as a viewer, you definitely gain some respect for this guy because he's able to kind of constantly adapt his script to these ridiculous requests. And by the end of the film, there's actually some emotional resonance to it. And this is a movie that has a lot of heart to it, I think, which is really nice. Both actors are great. Koji Yakusho is one of my all-time favorites, so he's allowed to show a lot of different sides in his acting in this film. If you're a fan of the guy, he's a joy to watch here, despite being a antagonist, kind of, at least at the beginning of the movie. And then Goro Inagaki is able to hang with him. If you can hang with Yakusho and go toe-to-toe with him, and play off of them really well in a movie, that's impressive. International viewers, you may recognize this guy from some older movies, like from back in the 90s, like Parasite Eve, The Hypnotist, some of those Japanese horror films. He was in 13 Assassins. I think he was the villain in that movie. So if you've seen the Miike film, 13 Assassins, you'll recognize him from that. And then most recently, Tezuka's Barbara, which I reviewed. I think University of Laughs, though, probably my favorite performance from Inagaki. He's really good in this. Now, thematically, this movie is set around World War II, and so these events are not surprising. Of course, the government's going to try to censor certain things. They don't want to, sway public opinion on things or whatever, because it's a time of like intense, war. But there are plenty of examples of ridiculous censorship from around the world, that you can relate to, even if you watch this from anywhere. I mean, the Chinese Censorship Bureau gives us plenty of examples almost every single year. On the other side of the ocean, if you've ever looked into the nonsense that the MPAA was doing in the United States over the years, they provide plenty of examples. But in America, we've kind of deteriorated even more since like the 1980s when the MPAA was like wreaking havoc. We don't even need like a faceless organization like that, or even the government to censor us nowadays. We just censor ourselves. So the concept of censorship is very off-putting to me, and University of Laughs hits pretty hard with its exploration of that theme, even though it's a comedic drama, with a number of humorous moments. But even thematically, this movie's really good. Production design, pretty simplistic. You're only limited to a few locations, but it's effective enough. This is 2 full hours long. Don't feel the runtime. You really don't. It's like that good of a movie. So yeah, I highly recommend this. I think it's a must-watch. And it's easiest to find on Blu-ray or DVD, but you'd have to get the Japanese release, which does have English subtitles, which is nice. Unfortunately, it's on the expensive side. Japanese physical media is just, naturally expensive. So, but if you're going to splurge on some movies, on like, say, the Yes Asia website, add this to your cart. I think it's definitely worth it. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.